Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. It's Friday. I've started to not work on Fridays as long as I can because of this, but man,
Very nice.
it's fun.
Priorities for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so we're here to talk about the Houston Texans, and I'll tell you what, they've done some questionable things. I was listening to some podcast recently, and they basically said they think that the Texans are in the worst spot with regard to the top three teams. And I think there's an argument to be made that maybe not, but we'll get to talk about all of that. We're going to talk through the GM and coach and the new coaching hire, which should be a fun conversation. We'll talk through their cap space, kind of what the state of the team is, some of the team needs, how we would go about fixing them. So we'll give them free agents, and then we will also do a 4-round mock draft.
Well, 5 rounds.
It's a 5-round. Yes. Yes.
They
It's
don't
a
have a
5-round mock draft. Yeah. But they do not have a fifth. So we'll jump right into it. So the general manager for the Houston Texans is Nick Caserio, and the results are mixed with Nick Caserio because I feel as though he had a really good draft last year. Randy, talk to me a little bit about Caserio. What have you seen from him?
Yeah. So second season as the Texans GM, 20 years beforehand in the Patriots organization. This was as assistant coach for, I believe, only 1 year, a wide receiver coach, I think it was, and then multiple front office positions, whether it's just player personnel, business-wise, scouting. He's pretty much did everything. But extensive experience in the scouting department, free agents, acquisitions, and just player development. He was handed a shit deal last year. Your quarterback doesn't want to play, and you didn't have a first or second round pick. So I think he did a good job drafting, personally. Like you said, Davis Mills, the first pick that they had in the third round, they picked him, which we both thought was a good pick, especially with the Watson news and everything. We thought there was a chance he could develop into a playable quarterback, and all signs have pointed to that so far. It seems like he's their starting quarterback for this season, and I think he should have a pretty solid year for what we're expecting out of him. Followed that up in the third round with Nico Collins. I thought was slightly, at the time at least, I thought that was a little bit high for Nico, but there wasn't a lot of wide receivers that I loved right there anyways, and he showed some flashes. It's a different caliber receiver, big body that they usually don't go for, so I liked it a bit. And then Brevin Jordan, huge value in the fifth round, one of the best tight ends in the class last year, uber athletic, pretty solid blocker, good average to good route runner, but fantastic hands, and he could line up anywhere. So we really liked him. And then followed it up with Garrett Wallow and Ryan Lopez, just filler picks really there. I don't really care about those, but the first three I thought were really good. Again, shit hand, did well with it.
Yeah, and so Wallow, I thought was actually his best trait to me when he was at TCU, I believe, was he was a good coverage linebacker, and so that was a nice forward-thinking pick. The bad part is that he was actually really bad in coverage in his rookie year, but that you'll expect that from a fifth-round rookie that gets on the field far too much.
Yes, exactly. So his biggest thing is, first thing, we both agree that the whole coaching process was not handled correctly this year. But so there's an inability to hire with him and the ownership, the coach, to turn this team around for the future, not just for the next year or so, and hopefully build a small culture change. So that's one of the biggest things. And then the other big thing, obviously, is what they're going to be doing with Deshaun Watson, which, is a little bit not on them. They have to figure out. His life has to be figured out in the next month or so for them to even have really any lead on that kind of situation. But as of now, I don't think he did. I won't even say I don't think he did an adequate job of trying to unload him at the deadline. He probably did. We saw a couple bites out there, but some reserved trades possibly. So, it's a quarterback. It's a top 10 quarterback in the league, probably top 5. So, when he's played, obviously you never know. He could be shitty now. I doubt it, but maybe all the massages were what's making him good. But you got to get the value for him because it's going to be hard to even replace him ever. So you got to get as much value as possible.
Yeah, shout out that train. I love that train. Yeah, no, you're right. I think the reason I on this graphic we said head coaching blind spot, and I don't know that he has necessarily a blind spot, but I think what happened is the search went very wrong very quickly. They had a very interesting list of candidates in the first place, but I think what probably happened is those candidates came in and asked, "What are you going to do with Deshaun?" And he said, "I don't know at this point." And that's a fair assessment, but then you kind of, if I'm a coach and I'm going into an unknown situation, I don't want it to be that unknown. I don't know what kind of team I'm even dealing with, So I think that probably impacted his search, but this is a good time to segue over to their new head coach, which is Lovie Smith. You wrote in here, it seems like they couldn't get who they wanted and settled for a guy who was on the staff that led a defense that didn't have much talent, but to one of the worst in the league. They actually ranked 23rd in DVOA, so they overperformed, especially with the fact that Justin Reed actually sat out. He was a healthy scratch at the end of the year, which we should probably talk about as well. Lovie Smith is the most uninspiring head coaching hire I can recall outside of the Adam Gase hire to the New York Jets. Do you agree or disagree with that?
No, completely agree. I think they were pigeonholed in doing this. They came out later after this process was over saying that he was always in the running. He wasn't. They fired a good coach. I don't know if he's a great head coach or not. We'll probably never get to see the chance. But he's a good coach. He's a good player coach. It seems, there was the problem with Justin Reed. I'm not sure that was him. It could have just been Lovie Smith. This hire, for me, just proves that not necessarily that no one wants to work with Caserio, because I think that's not true, but no one trusts their owner, McNair, and they don't want to work with Esterby, which is McNair's pet project, former chaplain, now I think VP. No one wants him there except McNair.
Yeah.
They brought in Caserio because they had some relationship, because Esterby was the chaplain for the Patriots for a long time. So it's
not good.
It's someone that was willing to work with him, and he's a former chaplain. He's had no experience in player personnel or decision making or necessarily a lot of business decisions, and he's a high-ranking member that has a huge hand in at least gravity in decision making, gravitas. Decision making. So I do think
it's. Yeah, I think it's also worth it to mention that Nick Caserio doesn't have a great reputation either of people wanting to work for him. There are rumors that he is in headsets and micromanaging.
It's not rumors. It's factual. He did that. That happened in New England. He was allowed to do that, but you got to remember the GM there is Bill. So he wasn't necessarily a GM. So it was seen as okay, and now he's here. It's not really seen as okay, but he still does it whether it's legal or not, I believe.
Yeah, which it's not. We know that John Dorsey got in trouble for that. So and there are rumors that he's still doing it, and maybe the David Culley thing was a mutual thing. I know they fired him. I think firing him actually would help him get his buyout. If I read something correctly, it may have been misinformation, but it could have been a mutual thing where David Culley said, "You know what? Never mind. I don't want this." And then, like we said, so Lovie Smith, super unqualified, has had many stints where he has been unsuccessful. He went to the college level. I think Illinois is where he coached, right?
I believe so.
And he didn't have a single winning record while
No.
at the collegiate level. Then he gets bumped back to the NFL and still bad. I don't get it. I don't get it.
So he built a good culture in Chicago. They went to the Super Bowl and he lost, but that's fine. He technically in the NFL as a head coach has, I believe, a +2 win record. And I would say at least 75-85% of those wins are from his stint in Chicago. He's been very, very bad everywhere else, whether that's his fault or not. He has some part in it, regardless. So yeah. Again, it's why it's an uninspiring hire. It's not like I'm not saying anything bad about the person. I think he could probably build a pretty good culture to help the rebuild, because it's a full rebuild still. In my opinion, they didn't advance from last year. The only way they did is if Nico becomes their wide receiver 1, which I don't think happens, or Mills proves he deserves to be the starting quarterback. That's the only way they've really advanced in the first year of this whole regime.
Yeah. And you did right in here too. So he runs a 4-3 Tampa 2 traditionally. And the previous regime had a 3-4 scheme. And so he's kind of been molding and shaping those players to fit his scheme, and he needs help. The rumor, or not rumor, it was a report today that they will not be hiring a defensive coordinator, and that is problematic in itself as well. Lovie Smith said, "It's my defense. I'm calling it, and I don't need a coordinator." And I think that just shows you how bad of a head coaching hire this is. But again, I told Randy before we started the show, we took out the team DVOA stuff so that we wouldn't shit all over the franchise, because we were going to do it here. David Culley, good for you for getting out of this weird situation, but also you deserve more. 4 wins with that roster is remarkable. Good job.
Yeah.
If you're watching.
The only thing I'll say is, I think clearly Flores was the best hire here. But I don't think him and Caserio would have worked out. So I think that works out. And then I am very happy that Pep Hamilton didn't get shot up to the head coaching position here, because it is a future head coach there. He's a wonder in the offensive playbooks for everyone. He is the next QB guru whisperer, and I think he could do a lot with Davis Mills this year. I'm very happy that he stayed. I think a lot of people wanted him in Chicago and multiple other places, obviously Jacksonville, but I'm glad for him that he just didn't get the head coaching spot here, because not that he can't take it in 2 years or whatever, but right now is not the time to be the Texans head coach for a young stud head coach.
Yeah. Yep. So that'll do it for that portion. We're going to move over to the current cap situation. And honestly, this is why we said Nick Caserio got dealt a shit hand, and it's still pretty shit. No players and no cap space. So really no good players to kind of build around. And I say no cap space. They have 19 million in cap space with their top 51, right?
Yeah, I think it's like the 15th or 16th overall cap space.
Yeah. So it's not. So normally when you have these terrible teams, they've done a good job in managing the cap so that they can start to add via free agency as they start the rebuild. If you look at who just went through a successful rebuild, the
Dolphins.
Browns.
I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I
They're
was going to
still
say
in
that.
process, but I say it as so it's the best example I can think of because they're still the leaders in cap, and they've had mistakes in the rebuild, and they've gotten out of those mistakes and still have the most cap.
Yeah.
And they have parts to rebuild, but they're still ongoing. I think the Browns would be a successful version as well.
Bengals. I
Our
mean,
Bengals, but they're still in it too.
I
I know
know.
they're in the Super Bowl, but they're still in it.
Yeah.
Raiders did it a couple years ago. I would argue,
Yeah.
there's
There are
multiple teams,
a lot of
really.
examples of
49ers.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of examples of teams just having a ton of cap space if they're in a position to rebuild. This is not the case, and it does go back to Deshaun Watson, which we'll probably get to here in a second. But Randy, why don't you walk us through the key free agents for this team?
Okay. So key free agents is a tough word to bring up.
Yeah, yeah. There's no one key. There's one key player.
Yeah, so Justin Reed is the key, and he is not coming back. He's not playing for this organization again. Besides that, I would argue that, man,
Tough. It's tough.
I would say Desmond King, Eric Wilson, Christian Kirksey to an extent, Justin Britt for sure, and Tyrod Taylor, David Johnson would be the key ones. But on top of that, they signed a bunch of 1 and 2 year deals, just like the Lions, except none of theirs really worked out, unlike the Lions. So Jacob Martin, Jordan Akins, Kohler, Toner, Royce Freeman, Jeff Driscoll, Lane Taylor, Chris Moore, Jaleel Johnson, Anthony Auclair. That sounds right.
Sure.
Hardy Nickerson, Gary and Christian, Chris Smith, John Weeks, Tay Davis, Chris Conley, DeMarcus Walker, Vincent Taylor, Farrell Brown, Neville Hewitt, Terrence Brooks, Danny Amendola, AJ Moore, Camu Kruger Hill, Eric Wilson, and then the key ones I mentioned, and then Malik Collins would be the last one. A lot.
A lot.
Like half a roster, it feels like.
Damn close. I mean, at least half of one side of. Well, no,
that's at least a third of a roster there.
Yeah, it's a lot. So realistically, we'll talk about who we would keep from that group, but the list is very short. They did make a few of them made our free agents list, but not a whole lot there. Are there any ways, Randy, for them to create some more cap space with key cuts?
Okay, so cuts. Marcus Cannon. If you cut him, you save $6.35 million. He wasn't necessarily bad, but he just didn't play because he was hurt. Kevin Pierre, Luis, same thing. Didn't really play. Wasn't terrible, but $3.5 million saved there. Eric Murray, $5.25 million saved there. Just a bad signing by Bill O'Brien, and then another bad signing by him, Kaimi Fairbairn. I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Fairbairn.
But he's $2.8 million. I believe he's a top 6 paid kicker, and he's a bottom 6 kicker. So cut him and move on.
Yep. Kickers matter, but when you have a bottom 6 kicker, they don't anymore. So
yeah. So this is about, what is this? Roughly like 18, 19 million you can cut and bring in. So almost doubling your salary cap right there. And then there's 3 big trade possibilities for them. The first one I'm not going to bring up as much. Brandon Cooks, I think it saves, I want to say like 8 to 10 million if you cut him or trade him. I think it's trade, not cut. Yeah. But for me, if you're not getting a good deal, which I don't think they would, just keep him. I mean, he's your wide receiver 1. You can draft someone else and help build it and maybe trade him at the deadline. And then it goes to Laremy Tunsil, who they traded everything to have premier left tackle for Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson doesn't want to be there. And he's still incredible. There's no playing that is the reason you trade him. It's just you need to gut this team and rebuild, and you might as well get rid of these really good cornerstone pieces that are getting to the point where they're a little older, Tunsil's on his second deal, so trade him. You save a little over $9.5 million if you trade him pre June 1st, and then it's Watson, who, from the most recent research I can find, he has a criminal case deposition scheduled at the end of the month. I think it was like February 20th or so, at the
It's coming up.
earliest, technically. So I think it'll happen at the end of the month. And then it was a pre-trial hearing early March. However, I think that there's a good chance this all gets settled at the end of the month so he can get traded one way or the other, kind of thing. Doesn't mean he doesn't get suspended for games or something, but
He
the
will.
court case has to be done first before that's going to happen. So the key dates for that is, if they want to trade him before the league year starts on March 16th to save the most money. This saves them $24.2 million in savings. After the league year starts, they owe him a $5 million signing bonus it goes to $19.2 million in savings. So again, just like the cuts, trading Watson doubles your salary cap.
Yeah.
Plus.
I do want to mention too. So the logistics behind Deshaun Watson are very much so tied to what happens in the court cases. A lot of people are still under the assumption that all of these cases are civil suits. They're not. One criminal case was brought up, I believe actually two, and one of them may have been dropped back down to a civil. But the criminal cases take a lot longer. Like, the deposition can happen. They can determine that they have to go to trial. This isn't the reason that it may be even difficult for them to trade him. It's definitely going to be extremely difficult to get him through on March 16th, I think, personally. But
yeah,
I think there's a chance that they struggle to trade him even after the league year starts, especially because there are a lot of free agent or available quarterbacks out there. And if they aren't able to do it at a certain time, there's a chance that there's just no quarterback needy team. Now, Deshaun Watson, when on the field, erasing all of the off-field stuff, is better than your favorite team's quarterback, unless you're the Bills or the Chiefs. I think he's a top 3 quarterback in the league when he plays. Maybe Aaron Rodgers. Definitely Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
for another year at least.
Yeah. But I think that there's a chance that people don't want to inherit that risk if we don't know what's going on, which is exactly what's been happening for a year now.
Yeah, so I think there's still obviously a chance they could trade him before the deadline, but because there was nibbles at the trade deadline, and that shows me that while they weren't willing to pull the trigger at that point for the price, maybe they will now on the new league year, new money, new picks on your team and all that. So I think there's a chance.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think this has to be kind of dealt with before the pre-trials probably even starts or is over. And that's going to be very difficult to do. It's going to be like they're going to have to get an NDA agreement done that day, which I just don't know if that's possible. The civil stuff, because I don't think he'll go to jail for it.
No.
Because it's civil cases, it's going to be very difficult to get jail time. He's probably just going to pay them if he's anyway kind of guilty, but that won't be a problem. This one will be.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to put that out there. It sucks. It sucks talking about Deshaun Watson, especially when we know so little, but we have to. Like, that's part of it. And I will say too, you're right. They need to deal with it. And there's a chance. I know that cutting him is just like, it's like a business filing for bankruptcy, because I believe I think what would then happen is the Texans would then sue him and get out of his contract a little bit. But if they cut him, there's problems. So I think that's a way out as well.
I'm sure there's morality clauses in the contract that they could get away with not paying him stuff, but they're not going to cut him, in my opinion, because worst case, someone's going to give them 1 first for Watson, just for the shot, I think. And because
Probably.
if someone signs him, they get comp picks. Like
Yeah.
they're not gonna, they're gonna.
Yeah.
It's just like with the Browns and Odell, they couldn't get better than a 3rd round pick probably, and like, well, we're just gonna cut him then because we get a 3rd round pick then. Why would we not?
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's stop talking about that. But it does matter. Let's jump over to the team needs though. And we listed off all of the pending free agents, and so team needs vast. All of the things they need, all of them. But Randy, you put them in this order. Is this the order that you would keep it in? Still.
Currently, yes. So I think obviously, I don't think quarterback moves with a Watson trade because I don't think they're I think they're set with Mills as their quarterback this year because they want to figure it out no matter what. I think offensive tackle is at the lowest part here. And I think obviously right now I would put that ahead of tight end just personally because I like Brevin. But obviously if you trade Tunsil, this shoots up to, I would say it shoots up to 2nd if you trade Tunsil.
I would argue 3rd, I guess. But
it's tough there. I think edge, corner, and tackle would be clearly their biggest needs. I don't really care in what order necessarily. And depending on who they re-sign at safety, that could move up as well. And again, you trade Brandon Cooks, that goes over quarterback and safety for me, So there's a lot of moving parts with that, but as of right now, that's kind of where I would have it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the reason tight end would be up a little higher for me, which is funny because I didn't really give them one. It's just after Brevin in losing, unless they bring back one of their free agents, they're losing Akins and Farrah Brown, which matters, I think. So
yeah, but I would assume they could sign like a minimum deal for a backup tight end. So I'm not really that worried. And I also would say personally, with Lovey is now the head coach, I think I would move linebacker up at least to behind wide receiver.
Yeah.
Because that Tampa 2 defense and 4-3 front, his defense is reliant on good linebacker play. Back in the Bears days, that meant hole fillers. But now it means coverage and hole fillers. Because, linebackers in that defense are expected to do more and they're needed to do more. And now in today's NFL, they have to be able to do more specifically. Yeah. So,
for what it's worth, I did just go look at their depth chart one last time because I thought, man, that's a lot of starters that they're losing. They're losing 10 of their 22 starters.
Yeah.
And then like tons of their depth, their second team. So we're going to fix that right now. This is the part where we actually go through and fix it. I kind of cheated a little bit for what it's worth. Yeah. So, Randy, you give me, yeah, you're right. Yeah. 100%. Thank you. TDR YouTube account. I appreciate you, whoever you are.
Yeah, whichever one you are.
So Randy,
Christian.
yeah, Randy, go over your free agent acquisitions here.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I didn't have any fancy wording put in here like you, but so I put bring Tyrod back because I think he's a locker room leader for you guys, and he's obviously going to be the backup quarterback, but he is well above serviceable backup. He did some good things for you last year before he got injured against the Browns, and then, Davis struggled, and then he came on down the stretch. So for me, I think you bring him back for 1 year, probably about $4 million. I think his value is about $3 million, but I think you give him an extra $1 million just to be back. And here's the other thing. The Texans, in my opinion, at least this season, aren't getting big name free agents, and they're probably having to overpay people to come. So there's that. Follow that up with Jayon Brown. I would say disappointing linebacker for the Titans, who struggled over the years, but he's had some good play as well. I think, Titans may be time to move on and upgrade the position, in my opinion, especially when you're a playoff team and Super Bowl possibly contenders in the future. So for me, I think you bring in Jayon Brown here to be the leader of your linebacking core while you get some young talent in here to develop. I think he basically replaces Christian Kirksey for me, who is replaced by, I would say, a bandage every year. So it's not really missing much there. And then Kareem Jackson, bringing him in at safety for about, and Jayon Brown 2 years, $6 million. This one would be 2 year, $5 to $6 million for Kareem Jackson. You had some encouraging play from safeties last year. Obviously, Reed's gone, but for me here, I think you bring in a safety in the draft, but you bring in this, I believe, 34-year-old safety who's played well. He's a veteran. He can help build the culture in that secondary room, and I think that's a good hire or good signing here. And then finish it off with bringing back your starting center, mainly because this isn't like there's some good centers in this draft, but I think all of which will either be reaches or gone by their selections. So for me, I say you bring back your starting center on a cheap deal, 2 years, $6 million. That's all he's worth, and it fills out your line in your rosters. You build out the other positions and maybe take a depth developmental center later. I know they have Morrissey, I believe, is their backup center. I don't believe he counts, so I think you got to bring back Brent, unfortunately, who played decent. It's just I'm not going to shit on him necessarily, but he's not a top 10, 15 center. So
No,
but
no,
that guy's not coming. Jensen's not coming here.
Yeah, no one's coming here, and that leads me to my side of the free agent thing here. Whatever the fuck this is, a graphic. It's a graphic. Yeah, I don't know.
This thingy.
So the main thing to take away from here is fill the roster with bad players and give yourself a fighting chance at Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. That is, in my opinion, the most important piece of this free agent acquisition period. I don't think that they want to win. And I know as a Texans fan, that's really going to suck to hear because right now is a prime time to pounce on the division with the Titans being good, not great, in my opinion. I think that they are beatable. They showed that a lot throughout 2021. And with the Colts just not even committing to the quarterback they just traded for. They sent a first round pick for. So now is the time to pounce. However, the Texans, I understand that seeing what Davis Mills is a good idea. And I agree that they should absolutely do that. But a quarterback like Davis Mills, I think what you take a step back and say is Davis Mills getting me to the Super Bowl? And I think everyone knows that even if he reaches his height, the answer is probably no. And if the answer actually is yes, and he's able to get them there, the outcome is very much so what Jimmy Garoppolo did against Patrick Mahomes. And so that needs to be the number one priority in this free agent acquisition period. However, let's go snag Marcus Mariota. The reason Marcus Mariota would come here, I believe, for a decent sized deal. I said 1 year, $7 million, so pretty significantly higher than what it would take to get Tyrod back. The reason he would come here is because I think Mariota is ready to compete for another starting role. I understand that like you bringing Tyrod back is more insurance if Davis Mills struggles. I would bring in Mariota and see if maybe that can be your stopgap. Maybe Mariota, in just the wildest glitch in the simulation, ends up being the next Ryan Tannehill, where Tannehill did it to him, and then he's able to actually go there and kind of revive his career. Maybe, who knows? I'd throw $7 million at him and kind of see. And then Desmond King, I thought was one of the better corners for the Texans last year, in a room full of no one that was good. And so I think he'll be fairly cheap. I said, $8 million per. Unfortunately, corner, when you're signing corners off the free agent market, it's expensive. So it might be a better route to actually just draft secondary players, but I think bringing him back makes some sense. Gives a little bit of consistency for Lovie Smith, who is going to struggle while calling plays and stuff. So
It's smart for him too, because this is the only spot where he's going to be a cornerback 1. He's not going anywhere else to be a cornerback 1. So it's kind of like a prove it deal here. It's probably the most money he's going to get too. Again, they're going to have to overpay. I don't disagree with the Mariota thing. It's just, for me, it's different here because, like I said, this is Davis Mills' chance. Like I struggle to see Mariota coming in and winning the job, not purely on talent, because I think he probably does there, but because of they want to know what they have in Davis. So, and I think there's, for that competition wise, I think it makes sense for Mariota possibly to go like Carolina, Denver, Washington, Pittsburgh, these Saints, these teams that, or Tampa, these teams that could be drafting a quarterback this year that clearly isn't ready to play, at least right away, and he can take over for the season and show what he's got, which I think is at least a middle of the road quarterback,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when he got the opportunity, when Carr left because he hurt his groin, Mariota was good. He was good in that 3.5 quarters. So
yeah, because he's not a shit quarterback. He's just
no,
he wasn't the 101.
Yeah,
he didn't live up to that, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, so that's kind of the strategy we took for free agency. Let's move over to
bring in whoever will let you. That's our strategy.
Yeah. You'll have to throw a little bit of money around, and with those cuts, I don't know that they exhaust all of their cut options, but I do think that they cut 3 to 4 of those 5 players that we listed out and explore the Tunsil trade because there's a massive market for starting caliber, really good offensive tackles. Of course, there always is.
Also, I believe all those cut numbers are pre-June 1st cuts, if I am not mistaken. So they have plenty of time to save that money. So,
right,
just saying, so they can see what the market is out there for like Tunsil and everything, and Watson first, and maybe Cooks, and then see who's willing to show up in Houston, and if they need the extra million, then they cut someone, kind of thing. Because I think those were all 4 viable cuts, but they also, like we said, are losing at least a third of their fucking roster. So it's going to be hard to cut a lot of people.
It's very true. All right, let's move over to the 5-round mock drafts, and we're going to start with Randy, as we always do. So, Randy, hit us with your mock draft.
Okay, so, it's a team that, again, we think they're trading at least one of Cooks, Tunsil, Watson, if not trying to get rid of all 3 or mix match that. So I think they have more picks than this in the draft and in future drafts. But for this one, if they all just stay pat, I think the Texans is a pure rebuilding team and organization. If they get an offer to trade back in any way that's fair, they absolutely have to trade back, in my opinion. This one, I was offered the Giants' 5th pick and their 2nd pick, the 36th pick overall, for the 103. It's a little bit like, I think it was like, on the trade value charts and everything, I think it was like 50 to 100 over what a direct value. But again, the team trading for the pick has to give incentive for the team to trade back. So it's always going to be a little bit over. I don't think it's ever going to be perfectly even fair value. And that's just the same thing as fantasy, where, you have to kind of make the guy bite and trade away the piece. So here they trade back. And yeah, I believe the mock went Evan Neal, Aiden Hutchinson. Giants traded up to get ahead of the Jets to make sure they got the edge they wanted, which was Kevin Thibodeau. And then the Jets just said, well, fuck everything, and picked. They picked Kyle Hamilton in my mock with the 4th pick, which kind of screwed over what my plan was. But they got rid of that. I picked Ike Mekwonu, tackle from NC State. I think worst case, you keep Tunsil and you like what you have at right guard or right tackle, and you play him at guard. I really don't give a shit. He's a fantastic lineman. They need fantastic fucking linemen. He's a great fit. I didn't think it was a need to reach at edge. I didn't think, with Hamilton on the board, I didn't like it. I don't want to pick quarterback there. I think it was the best move at this position. So I went with that. Followed up top of the second with the traded pick that they got from the Giants. Roger Mccreery leaked out into the second round, which is very possible because it's a very early pick in the second round. Corner from Auburn. We saw him at the Senior Bowl, a little bit shorter arm-wise than a lot of people would like, and he still dominated the Senior Bowl. So I am full sending Mccreery. I think he's very talented, and he's a much-needed influx of talent at the quarterback position for the Texans. Followed that up with the very next pick with Christian Harris, the linebacker from Alabama. He right now is my third linebacker. I think by the end of the process, Muma may get ahead of him. But as of right now, Harris is viewed as a late first round, early second round, top 40, top 45 type player. So he's there on my board here. I'm taking him. They need, like I said, talented linebackers, no matter fucking what on this team for Lovie Smith's defense to work. So I think there's a good chance, and there's rumors popping up that they want to trade back in the first to, 8, 9, 10, 12, whatever it is. So they don't seem as if they're reaching for a linebacker, whether that's Dean or
Lloyd.
It seems like that's one of the players they really value in this draft. So with that not being the possibility on my trade, so I took the linebacker here. I do think it's a possibility because it's the Texans and it's a bad pick at 3, but it's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. So here they get Harris, he's very talented, and I think he would easily be their best linebacker. Follow it up. Yeah, you have a comment on any of that, by the way? Kind of rambling.
Yeah. What did you say?
How about the linebacker being drafted in the first for them?
No, so I was just going to say, I mean, taking him at 3, taking any of the linebackers at 3 is just ridiculous. Taking Christian Harris at the top of the second feels like it might be a reach as well, but also, like you said, he'd easily be their best linebacker.
Yeah.
And I think you said before, right? Like we've taken Muma. We've talked about Muma quite a bit, and so we can't. We do. I wanted to say to everyone that's listening and watching, we try to diversify these picks a little bit too, because we don't want to just key in on our favorite players. But all right, sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. No, you're good. I didn't want to cut you off there. So following it up with George Pickens to begin the third round. I think it's like the third or fourth pick in the third round. He's a guy that I think we're both going to have as a second round talent and in our final scouting, but the injury concerns and everything, and he's really only had 1 year of production because of injuries and everything. I think he's going to fall for a lot of people, and I think he has a good chance to fall in the draft. I know he went to the big school, which is going to help bolster him a bit, but every year there's a wide receiver that slips that shouldn't, and I think it's probably going to be Pickens this year. I think this pick, 368, for me is either going to be – I was trying to decide between Mechie and Pickens because I think one of them's there, and this one it was Pickens. So I went there. Very talented. I would say easily their wide receiver 2 day 1 because I think he's more talented than Nico Collins. So great pick there. Followed it up in the third round with I love the phonetic spelling you have here. Boye Mafe, which I feel like I would just say that normally when reading that. I think Boye Mafe.
I was just looking to help, man.
I appreciate it. It's just one of the ones like I think that's how I'd normally pronounce it, but now I'll never know. Edge from Minnesota, a Senior Bowl standout, I think is the biggest thing for him. I think day 2 fringe was his calculation going into the Senior Bowl, and maybe it's just poor tackle play at the Senior Bowl, but he was one of the best edges there. I'd say second best, possibly, but he was very, very consistent, especially in the actual game itself. He was constantly disruptive. I think he easily would be a starting edge for them, at least by midway through the year, but probably day 1. And then finish that off with getting a possible chance at running back of the future. And another Senior Bowl standout, Dameon Pierce, the running back from Florida. Christian loves him. I love him. I don't remember I don't know where he's going to fall for me. I think there's a good chance he ends up as RB4, maybe 5. But either way, he is very, very talented. He's not moving up boards. And if he is, it's very slightly. I think he was probably a 5th-round guy for a lot of people. I got him here. The board kept showing it was a reach for him at 135. I think that's value. I would pick him over Rachaad White right now, even though a lot of people would have White as the better Senior Bowl day necessarily. But Pierce was a standout during practice. Everything I saw, I thought Pierce was the best running back there, and I'm taking him here for the Texans, who probably won't want him because he's not 32 at running back. So
it's true. They did extend Rex Burkhead, so
of course they did.
It's funny we both had them taken running backs, though.
But that's also why I didn't take White, because White was it
he's
White?
More Burkhead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, was it White? Yeah, it was White, because he's more. I think starting off, he's more geared towards the 3rd down rotational running back role, which is Burkhead. So
right, and Pierce is that grinder.
Yes.
So, no, I mean, a really good draft. I said before that I like your mock better than I like mine, and
you got the best player.
I did get the best player. So let's switch over to that. My first pick, I sat at 103, and I took Kyle Hamilton. And I think that this is a realistic possibility. That's something that the Texans would do. Nick Caserio is going to love Kyle Hamilton, I think. Just coming from the Patriots way, at 103, taking a safety sounds crazy. I understand that. But Kyle Hamilton is not just a safety. He's as versatile as any player in this class. There are people who are saying that he is the best player in this class, but obviously the Jaguars are not going to take a safety at 1 overall.
I sorry to cut you off, but I think this is going to lock it in for a lot of people. Former chaplain, Esterby, Catholic school, Notre Dame.
It's true.
Perfect match. Yep. Let's get it going.
Exactly.
And you know what? This is a blue chip prospect. And this is exactly the type of player they need. I think, any of the top 2 edges for me make sense. But, yeah, Hamilton works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you put Hamilton in, and honestly, your slip from Justin Reed to Kyle Hamilton is small. Now, I will say they played different positions traditionally. Kyle Hamilton is normally a strong safety, but like I said, he's super versatile. He can line up in the slot. He can play single high. He can play 2 high. He can play in the box. It doesn't matter. He is that good as a player. So at 103, it's actually value. It's actually perfect value, in my opinion.
I think he would step in and be the best safety in the division day 1. Off the top of my head, I mean,
yeah.
Who do the Titans have at safety that matters? I mean,
they had a rough year at safety. So.
Yeah, they had some bigger names, but they had a rough year. Jaguar safeties, who cares?
Yeah.
And then, I mean,
Rashawn Jenkins or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, shit.
Yeah. I mean, he'd be one of the best defensive players already too. So, anyway, I followed that up with Johann Dotson with the 37th overall pick. I got a little confused there because I forgot you traded for the 36th. I was like, there's no way I messed that up. The 37th overall pick, I gave them Johann Dotson. I think that there's a chance Dotson's a first-round pick because he does the things that NFL teams tend to like. He gets open. He's got aggressive hands. He's pretty good at contested catches. He's quick. He's a yak guy. But I do worry. I see a little bit of Jalen Reagor in his game. I think his hands are a little better. I know. Well, now remember how well I didn't think it very highly of Jalen Reagor, but I know you did, and a lot of people did. So I do see that as like a positive, and I think if Jalen Reagor were to get into a situation where he would work hard at getting better, he would be a top level. I mean, not a top level receiver, but a good receiver. And I think that's what Dotson is. He slides in as like the wide receiver 2, and people will say, well, wouldn't he be in the same role as Brandon Cooks? Yeah, pretty much.
But that's not the bad thing here. Him being the heir apparent to Brandon Cooks with a similar play style is a smart move as well.
Exactly. And
Because
that's
you're
kind of
because Brandon Cooks isn't your future. It's a difference. It's like
right. And so you're combining, like you kind of look at what the makeup of that wide receiver room is, and it's Nico Collins and it's Brandon Cooks, and that's really all that matters.
yeah.
And so you put Dotson across from Nico Collins for a long time, and you feel pretty good about that. I followed that up with I actually traded up, and I said I need a running back because I'm not gonna roll Rex Burkhead out there. I'm not gonna re-sign David Johnson. And I thought, man, what running back makes sense? So I traded up to the 61st overall pick from the 68th overall pick, added a sixth rounder in there for the 7 pick difference. And I felt like that was a decent enough value. And I went up and I got Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker currently for me is my RB3. I think as a runner, he is incredibly skilled. I think that he still has some developing to do in terms of his vision and you know I wouldn't say his patience because I think he is a patient runner, but I don't know that he is the
Sorry.
most patient runner. So like you look at Spiller and Brees Hall and those guys have a level of patience that I don't think Walker does. What's up? All right.
Well, because he was forced to have fucking patience before he transferred.
I
Their
know, yeah, the
running
Wake
backs
Forest dude.
basically have to take a nap in the backfield before they can move. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's so bad. Yeah, Wake
I mean,
Forest.
he's much improved. Vision I agree is his biggest weakness, because he was taught to just sit back.
Yeah.
But he had one of the best running back coaches in the nation this last year at Michigan State, and I think it's helped develop him very quickly into what he should have been all along. And yeah, he's a great running back. I mean,
Yeah. Good.
especially for this pick.
Yeah, good contact balance, good lateral agility. Just he's a good player, and him being there at the 61st overall pick, some don't think that that's going to happen, but I do. I don't
Like,
think the teams are going to overdraft the running backs in this
no,
class.
no, there's no running back going the first. The second round is the first round for running backs. That's
Yeah,
our future. You're gonna have to be like next year, like Bijan is going in the first, in my opinion. But that's
yeah.
probably it.
There might be a couple.
Maybe one more, maybe. But
Yeah,
that doesn't mean they don't go top of second. That's what I'm
right.
saying. That the second round is the first round for most running backs. You have to be special or overpicked to go the first round. Clyde. um,
Travis Etienne.
yeah, and but Walker could excel here, and he doesn't take away Burkhead. That's smart.
Right. Right. It's a good tandem, and I think they need a strong running game too. I followed that up with Isaiah Thomas, the edge out of Oklahoma. I'm a really big fan of Isaiah Thomas. I think that him across from Nick Bonito, who is more of a situational edge rusher, he was stellar. I mean, he showed good bend. He showed good football IQ. He was really good in run support. He's a powerful dude. He's just your guy you draft in the third round that maybe he's not a 10 sack guy ever, but maybe he's a 6 to 7 sack player every year. And that's perfect. That's exactly what you want out of a third round pick. So
Yep.
we'll talk about him more on the edge show, I think. I think he's going to land inside my top 10 edges.
Well,
Maybe.
it's D line show this year. So
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot we switched that. We might get to talk about him.
worst case I'd say he'd be honorable mention. So
Yeah, for sure. But that's just I think I like what they have in Jonathan Greenard, but we've talked about this before. They traded away another good piece, and so they need to add to that edge rusher
yeah, they have
room.
no studs there.
Right. And then I followed that up with the fourth round pick 135, Cole Strange, the guard. I feel like we've talked about Cole Strange on one of these Friday Fix shows, but I don't think I have yet. Maybe we haven't at all, but Cole Strange is a guy that walked into the Senior Bowl with a lot of hype, and he kind of showed out. He was a guy that he was losing his first rep and winning the second rep, which was kind of like a good thing, except for the first rep was traditionally the more speed rushing moves is I think what they were telling the guys to do. So he will struggle at times, but in the 4th round, I think he can start for you. And I think that he's still got some developing to do as well. So good player to get him in the 4th. Might not be realistic at this point because he did have a good week. But if he's there, they should take him.
I think it's realistic. The only way it wouldn't be is like there's a weird space for the linemen, like that mid to late 3rd through like the 5th, where it's like some could be value there, and I'm not quite sure if there reaches or if they're going to be picked higher because there's not this great depth. There's, it's weird. So I think he very well could be there. And I think he's a good pick. Yeah. They need talent. The offensive line too.
That's the thing. So
well, and we brought up cutting one of their a tackle guard, I believe, too. So
yeah,
it's not like their line was good anyways, besides Tunsil. So
yeah, and I didn't have any linemen come back in free agency unless one from the fill roster with bad players.
Well, they're gonna have to fill roster somehow like that with the line, but
exactly. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Friday Fix, the Houston Texans edition. If you're a Houston Texans fan, reach out to us. Let us know what you think we did right, what we did wrong, however you feel about it. And, this has some fantasy relevance. We both gave it a little bit of fantasy relevance. So let us know what you think about that, these landing spots. Now, the Texans are never going to be viewed as a good landing spot, but in terms of opportunity, Kenneth Walker then would maybe bump up a little bit because he's going to be like more of a workhorse. So,
and again, we failed as best we could with these picks. I, in my belief, think that they at least get at least one more pick in these first 5 rounds this year. That's even if they trade all Watson and everyone for just future picks, nothing this year. Which is possible for a guy like Watson, where it's like a conditional 1st and 3rd next year type thing. But they're gonna have more picks, and the more if they trade both Watson and Tunsil, I think it's then a more enticing landing spot for these rookies coming in because it's a clean, fresh state then, and you're the building block. So I think it becomes that they're valued then for the future of this organization.
Yeah. All right, man. Is there anything you want to add? We don't have any Marvel talk again. We won't for a long time.
Not for the Texans. It'll be what? About free agency when we finally have Marvel talk?
Yeah. March, I believe 14th is when Moon Knight comes out. So
yeah, we're probably not gonna. We may get a DC talk right before then.
We'll be talking about the Batman. That's for sure.
I know, but we won't do it the first week.
I know.
Maybe the second week. And we'll say
I'm excited.
We'll say spoilers and everything. So
yeah,
but
yeah,
so you won't get screwed over there. But
and if you guys are confused and didn't catch the episodes last year, we had a 10-minute segment at the end of these episodes where we would talk through the Marvel happenings, and that brought a little bit of fun.
What was it? It was WandaVision.
WandaVision.
I think we got a little bit of. I want to say we got a little bit of
Captain America,
Captain and Winter Soldier near the end.
Or Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Spoiler
alert.
Holy
hell.
Whoops.
Well, I was giving him his proper title, damn it.
I know.
It's not Captain Falcon.
Yeah, that's true. Although that would be a cool name. All right. Well, like I said, we will bring that back eventually. And, let us know. So I know Twitter, if you guys are commenting on Twitter, if you're watching on Twitter right now, head over to YouTube if you guys want to interact. That was our favorite part of these episodes was we would have interactions with people, and then StreamYard and Twitter are apparently beefing. And so if you want to comment and you want to interact on these shows, head over to YouTube. We do have a YouTube as well. Just search the Cut FFB and we will pop up. Make sure you subscribe. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. Or don't. It's okay. And also visit thecutffb.com. Also, I talked about a mock draft on Monday that I'm writing. It's almost done. I'm releasing it tomorrow, I think. So look out for that.
Yeah. Super Bowl preview mock. I like it.
Yeah, I really should wait. That's
That
I'm
was my
just so
joke.
I'm so amped, you know. But yeah, so all right, that'll do it for this episode of The Cut.
And you may see a
For
mock tomorrow.
yeah, and you,
Or
yeah,
Sunday at midnight.
yeah, we'll see. I know I'll be watching Euphoria then. All right, for Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Later.